Today, we're going to learn, and we're also going to connect more. With no further ado, to kick off our conference, I have the delightful pleasure to invite the French National President of the Community Center Federation. I give you Mr. TARIK TOUAHRIA.
First of all, I would like to welcome each of you, whether you are volunteer, professional, or partners. I would also like to thank the entire team for preparing for this moment. This morning, I would like to express the pride of the FCSF, Fédération des Centres Sociaux et Socio-culturels de France, in having contributed to the Fostering Social Justice project with the IFS over these 3 wonderful years. This day will show us all the power of our organization to contribute to greater social justice, and more precisely, all the power used, but also not yet fully used, fully deployed. In a period of national shrinkage, the Fostering project gives us the moral, technical, and organizational strength to fight against all closures and for openness. An openness that is never theoretical, nor blissful, but on the contrary, nourished by the tremendous know-how of the actors in our organizations. At a time when almost in all countries the exclusion of others tends to become the norm, through our fight for more social justice, we contribute to strengthening democracy, because there is no living democracy without a permanent fight for social justice. Today, we must recognize and celebrate the vital role that settlements play in building a more just society. By investing in this space for developing the power to act, we are investing in the emergence of a truly inclusive democracy, where each individual not only has a voice, but also the means to make it heard and to influence public policies. I was just talking about moral force. While speaking with Claudie, without this project probably would not exist. Yesterday, I also realized that projects like fostering social justice were also havens of peace, where we can recharge our batteries and regain our morale. Because sometimes, in our daily fight against the crashes of the world, we also ourselves are shattered, worn out. And we need to find a place of peace, serenity, and hope. Dear friends, let us hope that this day fully fulfills this function and that we then live stronger, more determined, and also sharper to fight our daily battles. Thank you.
Thanks again, TARIK. And thanks to the entire FCSF team for organizing this such a great moment. Our next speaker is a very special man. And it is my great pleasure to give the mic to the president, our president of the International Federation of Settlements and Neighborhood Centers, Mr. PENTTI.
Today, it is an important day. The IFS, International Federation of Settlements and Neighborhood Centers, the nearly 100 years old global movement, people's movement, is growing and expanding. The IFS is active on every continent in around 30 countries, reaching millions and millions of people. And we all have the same goal, a socially just, safe and equal world. It is important to know that the everyday work we do in our own countries and local communities is a part of the bigger picture. Today in Strasbourg we are ending the 3-year journey together as the IFS Fostering Social Justice project comes to an end. Today we will hear more about it and its conclusions. We are particularly happy and proud that the IFS is expanding in Europe and the Mediterranean countries. Together we have created a new organization, Euromed Federation of Socio-cultural and Neighborhood Centers, EFS. We are people who say that peace is possible. Peace is not just the absence of war. Peace is about equality between people, about taking care of the weakest and the smallest. Peace is an ecologically sustainable way of life. It is a socially just society, and it's a world in which every human being is uniquely valuable. These are not just beautiful words, they are a manifesto. They are the voice of the people and the policy agenda, roadmaps to peace and a sustainable society. That is why we are publishing today a white paper which is being distributed here today and will be handed over to the EU Parliament tomorrow. It will also be distributed to the parliaments of all EFS member states. I am delighted to and proud to welcome our keynote speaker. She is a person whose long life's work has been and continues to be centered on the defense of peace, equality and democracy and the strengthening of the structures that underpin them. She is an activist and she is a healer of the world and a long-time supporter and friend of our work. She is the honorary president of the Finnish Federation of Settlement Houses, who has come a long way today to be with us here in Strasbourg. She is a member of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network's Leadership Council. She is a former president of Finland. She is TARJA HALONEN. Welcome.
The IFS network has contributed to the promotion of the social justice, diversity, solidarity, peace, and democracy around the world. And as they mentioned, I have had the pleasure to work with these people through the Finnish Federation of Settlements for many years, and now they have nicely put me a little bit away to calling me the honorary president. Okay, but anyway, the efforts of the IFS are very much needed today. Our world is, as you know, facing multiple and interconnected crises which have had severe economic, social, and environmental impacts around the world. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on the white paper on fostering social justice and how the practice and policies can be implemented at different levels. I hope to continue to working with you also with these issues in the future. So, dear friends, it is really sad that our old traditional challenges have not disappeared, but the new risks are rising. Climate change, you know, is accelerating at an alarming rate. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed and deepened inequalities. And what you have heard, a new pandemic seems to be already at the doorway. So, democracy is being challenged both from inside and outside of our societies. Geopolitical division and polarization are growing, and conflicts are increasing with the global impacts. War has also returned even to Europe with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. At the same time, thousands of people are continuing to try to immigrate to Europe as refugees or simply for better living conditions. In the present world of polycrisis, no country can meet current challenges alone. We need unity, solidarity, and cooperation. And we need this cooperation at all levels of society. Luckily, we have a blueprint for a better, more secure and healthy planet. And you already guess what I will say, the Sustainable Development Goals of United Nations. We are now at the halfway point in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. So, but let's be honest. We are lagging behind on the implementation. Only about 12% of targets are on track. Nearly half of the targets are off track. For example, the number of people living in extreme poverty and in hunger have again increased. So times could be easier for combating the intensifying and enormous challenges of sustainability, but so it is. This is the time we have, and we need to accelerate our efforts. So UN Secretary Antonio Guterres has recently issued a series of policy briefs to provide more details on how to tackle the obstacles and fill the gaps and how to increase action on the Sustainable Development Goals. You might remember that next year's Summit of the Future will be a critical opportunity to reaffirm shared objectives and principles, as well as to take forward solutions to more effectively deliver for people and planet. So, dear friends, what makes the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development special is that for the first time, the environmental, economic, and social sustainability were tied also officially together. It confirmed that we cannot solve global problems in silos. For instance, conflict and poverty are deeply interconnected. There is no peace without sustainable development and no development without peace. A clean environment is essential for human health and well-being. Just a few examples for you. As the theme of the conference here is social justice, I concentrate on the social dimension of the Sustainable Development Goals, as the organizers have asked me. I just give you a little bit warning. I have been involved and co-chairing both the Millennium Goals and Sustainable Development Goals and fair globalization and so on. So if you give me an unlimited time to speak, you will be tired. But okay, they said to me how long I can speak. So to achieve sustainable and resilient development, we need to reduce the inequalities and vulnerabilities, the risk leaving individuals, communities, and whole countries behind. So we must end poverty and building peaceful, just, and inclusive society. A just world means respect for human rights, and this encompasses health, education, and social security. So coming from Finland, you can guess, I think that the most powerful key to empower people is education. Education is not only a human right, but it also increases the possibility of breaking deprivation and negative cycles, and therefore it's advancing equality. And the Nordic countries, we are a good example of that. So this requires access to quality education without discrimination. It also requires investment in lifelong learning. And very often when I speak for the younger ones, they understand very well that the education of their parents is old-fashioned. But when I continue telling that your education will do that even faster, so they don't look very happy. But that's the truth, because the world is changing and they have to know more and more. But it's also true with the gender equality. We need women and girls in science, technology, in engineering and math, and we need men and boys also in caring professions. So in that way, we get the best fitting persons to every profession. So this has always been true, but today, in the time of rapid changes, global challenges, a need of strong international cooperation in trade and science, education is ever more needed. So let me raise also a few more important themes. To lift people out of poverty and create equal opportunities for all, we need to increase efforts to ensure universal social protection. Social protection is about protecting our people, the most important and most creative factor in our economies. Social protection is a smart investment that can provide important support for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. There is a lot of work which is not visible in the statistics. Even we love to compare the statistics. The workers in informal labor market are without labor protection. We must facilitate the transition from the informal to formal economy. Decent work is an important precondition to access to both social protection and adequate income. Securing decent work enables individuals to build better and more prosperous future for themselves, their families, and even for their communities. Addressing gender gap in employment is also one of the causes of decent work. Women's economic empowerment boosts productivity and increases economic diversification and income equality. Economies with high women's labor force participation rates are generally performing well, at least better than those without. And we have to recognize and redistribute women's unpaid care work. Unpaid care work has been essential perhaps to the economy, but it often goes uncounted. For example, the Gender Snapshot 2022 report calculates that during the COVID-19 pandemic, women spent an estimated 512 billion hours globally doing additional unpaid care work. So finally, I would like to raise the issue of health and peace that I have been recently working on. Health security is one of the specific targets in the Sustainable Development Agenda, and it is also connected with many other targets. The impacts of COVID-19 show how closely health is interconnected with different sectors: the economy, social cohesion, gender equality, and stability of the society. I happen to be the chair of the Lancet Commission on Peaceful Societies through Health Equity and Gender Equality. We released our final report in September. I have some copies for those of you who are especially interested in this subject. Our objective was to explore the untapped intersection between SDGs for health, which is the goal number 3, gender equality number 5, and peace, which is goal number 16. The message of the report we issued is clear: healthy, equity, and gender equality have a unique and powerful ability to contribute to peace. So, the protection of well-being of civilians and health infrastructure in conflict is a basic element of international humanitarian law. The Commission's report demonstrates it also safeguards prospects for peace, for the sustainable peace. The humanitarian situation on the Gaza Strip is very worrying in this regard, with its healthcare system close to collapsing. Women and children have been disproportionately affected, and violence will have long-term negative impact on gender equality, also affecting the possibilities for the peace building, and I underline, for the sustainable peace. So, but you know, the future is not preset. It's not what's just come. Efforts to import health equity and gender equality can help end dynamics of vicious negative cycles and enable communities to transition to beneficial cycles, putting them on pathway to the sustainable peace and well-being. So, dear friends, finally, we must recognize that the roads for implementation of the SDGs can look very different. There are different ways to how to utilize resources and mechanisms to reach the goals. It's also important to remember sustainable development requires the effort of everyone. And when I say everyone, it means everyone. Political leadership has and had an important role. They are very welcome, but a much broader base is needed to achieve the SDGs, including governments, parliaments, business, academia, civil society, labor movement, and as well as individuals. So I'm looking at you. It means all of us. So our practical and everyday life needs sustainable development. Lasting and just peace cannot be built only top-down, but we, the people, have to build it everywhere. We, the people, make the environment where war starts have started, and we make the climate where peace negotiations can start. So I have a very, very strong confidence with you, trust. So you very much are those who are responsible, but I also want to you. And as you noticed, I thank you very much for your attention. I spoke much shorter than normal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam President. Thank you very much. There's much to do. And this was an power speech. We all feel empowered, and we know that there are many great works to do. And to move on, to implement the work that has been done, I now give the floor to, she's unique, and we all know her. We don't know all each other, but everyone in this room and online knows her. And that's because she's very good at what she does, and first of all, connecting with people. So let's give a round of applause to the one and unique Sophie MICHELENA.
Merci. We are here to talk about the results of the project, but before we do that, we have got somebody who would like to speak to us.
So congratulations on your commitment to this project as a coordinator, and congratulations to you, all the partners from the 11 EU countries who have worked to make it a success. The aim of your project is to strengthen cooperation between members of the IFS network to provide and advocate for effective adult learning opportunities, and above all for people with fewer opportunities. The French agency is very proud, through Erasmus Plus fundings, to enable positive results from cooperation between European countries and stakeholders. In these difficult times, we believe it is essential to work together to promote active citizenship and social inclusion. And it was also yesterday the main subject of the annual conference of the Erasmus Plus agency in Toulouse. We are at the end on 2023, halfway through the 21-27 Erasmus Plus program, and it's time for the midterm review. And thanks to projects like yours, we can demonstrate the strong impact of Erasmus Plus for the non-formal and informal education, the sector called adult education in the Erasmus Plus program. And yes, it counts. The results of your project and the political support it provides with your hearing tomorrow in Parliament are very important and a great opportunity to highlight this sector, its publics and its organisers. So thank you for your energy and your enthusiasm. And I would like to encourage you in the name of the French Erasmus Plus agency in your presentation tomorrow to Parliament of the policy recommendations that you have drawn up together. So congratulations again and enjoy your conference, and thank you for your attention.
Merci, Audrey. Thank you very much. So I was very, very proud to be coordinating for 3 years a project, but you don't do this kind of project by yourself, of course. So I would like the people who were part of the steering committee of the project to stand up and give us a wave. And that's STAFFAN, PENTTI, ADRIANA, and Philip, who is online in Germany. And now I would like the national coordinators from the countries to stand up. Some of you were also part of the steering committee, so stand up again. I would like Chris from the Netherlands, Vasiliki from Greece, Nuria from Spain, Peter from Hungary, Eva from Austria. And there could be somebody hiding somewhere that that didn't get up. And I can see one is missing from the room right now, but it's okay because they work so well together. I'd like to thank our special advisors and founders of the whole project. Once we call them the mothers of the project, the spiritual mothers. And it's Patricia who's disappeared, but thank you, Patricia. And Claudie, who's been mentioned quite a few times. Please stand up, Claudie. First of all, our funder. So our funder is currently online from Brussels as well. And the funder is the Education, Audiovisual and Culture Executive Agency in Brussels. So this was not a project funded by a national agency, but it was funded centrally from Brussels. It was a key action, 3 projects, important important messages of social inclusion. And what struck me when I first heard about this project was that it was a special fund of social inclusion that was created after some terrorist attacks in Denmark and in France, specifically in 2015. You might remember that. And basically the EU decided to put more money into funding acceptance, freedom of speech, respect for the rule of law, and they gave projects like ours the chance to prove how we do that. So I thought those words were inspiring to start us off on why we did this, and respect for others, as you can see in blue here, the important things. And then there was a declaration which sounds so right for us. It's the declaration of promoting citizenship and the common values of freedom, tolerance and non-discrimination through education. We heard that from Mrs. Halonen. Education was at the heart of our project, especially adult lifelong learning education, the skills that we all can teach each other as people and not just through institutions. We believe in inclusive teaching, and this is what we have to show you. So the partners, here they were. We have a really nice map of Europe with the partners. And also you can see in small all the organizations, because when we say Italy, of course it wasn't the whole of Italy, it was the network, the lovely network of ARCs and etc. for all the countries. I'm not planning to read them out, I might get it wrong, but if you want to know more, it's all in the white paper that you will receive this afternoon. The general objective of our bid was to enhance our cooperation and our capacity to work better. And we tried to have a working sentence. It was to learn best practice, really, about citizenship and empowerment through informal learning. So I think we actually achieved, looking back on the last 3 years, we achieved our objective. We had so many different levels to the project. If you want to know more, you can speak to me at lunchtime. But essentially, we had lots of logistic things. So we had exchange programs, we had strategic level discussions, and we even had a political level work, which was all about getting to speak to our ministers, our national agencies. Thank you, there is a national agency from France in the room today, like NAF. We speak to them about what we do and how we can actually work together going forward. And the discussions helped us write the white paper as well. So it was a multi-layered program. It was quite complex. I think some of you will probably smile at this, but it's true. It was quite a difficult thing to put in place, but we have done it. We are here to celebrate the 3 years of having done that. I'm going to give you some numbers and I'm going to give you some stories. The numbers are, we achieved 17 practice visits with 125 participants from all our different countries. We also put together 3 webinars that you will be able to watch again at some point on our website. And we invited our Greek friends to teach us and train us about EU funding. Thank you, Nefeli. Thank you, Vasiliki. You put together a super duper online training course. And we obviously have a white paper. You've already heard about this. This was one of our outputs, and we had probably never done that. Is that right, Staffan? First white paper, and we are proud of it. Thank you for being here on the day we're launching it. And thank you, Juniors, for looking after our website and our e-platform. Everything that's online, this lady has made happen. We're going to invite you to go on that website as well. And in fact, here is the e-platform. It's a beautiful baby, as Junias puts it. What I wanted to try, let's see if it works, is for you to give me a name, a word that you would like me to search on our platform live. So this is, you know, this could go wrong. Here it's happening. Can somebody give me the word that they would like to see if we worked on that in this program? If that's not on there, I would be surprised. So this is the internet. There you go. We had visits in Italy to do with social justice. It's working. We had a social impact blog and web podcast done by Crystal, who's here. There is outreach work in France that talks about social justice, and visits in Greece. So give me one other. This was not planned, Satu. I did not ask you this. It's true. So somebody who doesn't know me, has never met me, wants to say something. Oh, empowerment. You know me quite well, and you know the website, so that's... Right, empowerment. Okay, we have definitely 3 things. If you're searching, you have a webinar, you have a study visit from Finland, and you have a blog by somebody. This is how the website works. Please, please have a look at it. There's tons of stuff on it. That was the aim of this little piece. And on the website, what we do have is 3 different categories at the bottom. There we go. We have all the resources that are to do with active citizenship, migrant integration, and social inclusion, which are here. So when you click on active citizenship, you get to see everything that we have written about and done. 125 participants isn't enough. We want more people to hear about these things and learn. So the idea is we've put everything on the website. So please, 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 please go on it. We want these numbers to to go up as we are sharing all our work from Hungary, Austria, Sweden. I can see all these. And migrant integration, we learned about a lot in different countries too. Again, I'm not going to go into details. And social inclusion is just including people in talking, doing activities together. There's lots of examples from very informal, which is what we do best really, people, communities, connections, to maybe a training program in France. So from very informal to quite more formalized. But I think it's more than just the operational things that we did and the visits. We actually have heard from the people who went abroad in this program that they have created links between each other. So I know in this room that Nefeli from Greece made a link with Anthony in Italy, and that Eva made a link with Nuria in Spain, and they are talking still, and it's years later for some of them. So these are community workers and directors of social centers, volunteers who are keeping in touch through this program. We made 7 strategic visits to get to know each other better. We had lots of working group and strategic meetings. And yes, we have a growing network with a few new members, especially Greece and Spain. Thank you for joining our big family after the meeting. Okay, I am not going to bore you with impact, but basically, just so you know, we had thought quite hard about what this would mean. What is the impact on people? So this is how we went about recording it, but I just thought I would share some numbers with you. After 3 months, the people who went away on study visits told us themselves that they had used the tools they had learned, and that was 43% of them, nearly 1 in 2, already used what they had learned after 3 months back in their countries. So these programs work. And what surprised me even more, we did after 12 months, we asked people, and 60% of them said that after 12 months they put them in place. So obviously 3 months is a short amount of time, but 12 months, give them a chance, they will do it in their country. The tool was successful nearly in 58% of the times as well. But what is interesting too is that 88% of people changed their thinking and approach about how they do their work. So it's not just a tool, just an activity that we learned. It's about how we can do things in a different way. And I can see people nodding, because when you go abroad and you hear somebody else doing something differently, it just creates that wheel turning there. 76% of them shared the tools also within their organization. That means it's not just one person that's got that knowledge, we are sharing it. And most people said it takes a long time to make a change. So we do need at least 3-year programs, don't we, when we do something, because it doesn't just work after 1 year. We need to keep going. We have tons of impact stories. I've got them in my bag here. I've got hundreds. I nearly thought of cutting them up and getting you all to read them, but it's a bit too complicated. But if people are really interested in it, basically come and see me. I can show you them. We have quotes from the beneficiaries, the people on the ground. We have quotes from the people who went and studied abroad, the participants, and we have quotes from the 12 of us about what we learned. And I think there's a typology of these quotes. 1, people took a step back to see the bigger picture. They went, oh, I hadn't taken the time to think about that. 2, they learned new tools, as I said. And number 3, they actually put things into practice, and they told us that. There are quotes all around this room on these little pegs there that we have at the social centres. And so you're welcome to read them, but I just pick one. Eva picked yours this morning quite early. Eva said, I benefit from reflecting on systemic inequalities, including more citizen participation in developing programs. It is so inspiring to see others around Europe working towards the same goals. There are plenty more. Please read them. Go and speak to the people that are in this room. I thought I will try and share Laura's story, because for me this was a very immediate result of the program. I think people online will not hear it, but let's try and hear Laura's story. This is me in Finland seeing Laura again after she had come to France to study.
No money for anything.
Good. Welcome to Finland.
Merci.
I think the most valuable I saw there, and I understood it like more deeply than ever before, it was the thing that people were in power. I mean the people who were local people who lived in the neighborhood, they were really active and they had a position to act, and they were given the power to act in the social centers. For example, in our adult education center, we decided to buy a little bit similar bike and go outside with the bike to see people, to meet people. What we need to think about, how do we get people involved more in planning and doing things in our organization there. We need to first gather the people and then to activate the people, and so that they would do the thinking what they want to do, and then a kind of project of learning, not just that we would offer something ready. Okay, now you will learn this.
Oh, this is exciting. When was that? March. We came in March.
Laura.
Yeah. Yes.
Brilliant.
Nico, are you up for that?
Oh, absolutely. Maybe you set it up.
Yeah, I set it for you. Thank you. Surely. It would be either you or me. I have to be last. Okay.
Sophie is trying it. Yes.
So this was just to say that as part of this program, people have just been taking these ideas they found and just taken them everywhere in Europe, and they are meeting new people and creating new stories and new organizations because of this. So thank you, Laura, and thank you, Junias, for filming as well.
Yes, I am sitting in Brussels in my office. I work at the agency, the Education and Culture Agency, which is part of the European Commission. We are managing the funds that are funding, the money funding projects in these two areas. And just a few words maybe about our agency. We are organizing calls for proposals. We are selecting projects that are best suited for the priorities in the education or culture. And then we are following the implementation of the projects, and we are paying the money. But the most enjoyable part is indeed this, when we get to visit the projects and when we get to know the people behind the project and to match the faces to the names that we've read in the document. So I'm really glad that I have accepted your invitation, Sophie. And I came, it was important to me, I decided, we receive many invitations from many projects. I decided to come to your project because it was important to me to tell you that I like your project very much. I wanted to tell, and it's not out of courtesy, it's really a project that I think it's EU money well spent. Why? I have I have good reasons to say this. First of all, I see that your project has been born out of real existing needs. You know that, but we see often projects. Unfortunately, we also fund sometimes projects that are first come the project idea and then needs artificially are somehow adapted to the project. In your case, you obviously have it's your everyday working life. You work in an area that is very much very important for the society. It's very present in our society. We encounter it every day, I think. People in disadvantaged positions and at the same time very much underfunded, unfortunately. I'm glad that you found a way to the EU funding, and I'm glad that we found a way to you. I see also another reason why I like your project is because I'm confident that you will achieve an impact. Again, projects that are first where the idea comes before the need, they usually deliver their stuff, their documents and outputs, but they don't get to the point to achieve an impact. And in your case, I see that that it's different because you're behind your project, you're behind your work. You have a vested interest in moving things, in achieving impact. I've read the white paper, and it's a very good document with clear arguments, with clear ideas what needs to be changed. And you have a clear interest in achieving what we call a systemic change. This is the ultimate objectives that we are pursuing with our project. A systemic change, meaning a deeper change in the existing institutional structures, political structures, so that you move your ideas further. So this is a second reason why I like your project. It will, I assume, in longer term, you will get where you are heading to. And then I like it because we manage with the EU funds to get to the local level. Often EU is accused to be very distant from the EU policies, or projects to be distant from the EU citizens. But here I see the contrary, and I'm really glad and happy to see it, to see that the EU money gets to individuals and individuals in need. So I hope that you will be able to, you will continue your work, but you will be able to find additional funding. There are a few opportunities already now. The social inclusion program, unfortunately, was discontinued for whatever reasons. It might change with the next, with the new elections next year, with a new commission, new priorities, so things might change, but there are a few programs that are funding adult education, formal and non-formal adult education. There is the initiative Pact for Skills, which also provides funding in different sectors. One of these sectors is linked to proximity and social economy, so you might fit in there. I'm very happy to provide further and more detailed information for funding, and I will be really very happy if you manage to continue your this project. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Emilia. You might not be able to see all the faces here, but we were very, very happy to hear your speech and your words of encouragement, and so pleased that you were able to come here today.
They're here to share experiences. So they'll have a few minutes during which they will share some experiences and then reflect on each other, thoughts and ideas. After that, we will take maybe two or three questions from the participants online and the audience. MERVI?
Okay. Hi, everybody. And I think that at first we're going to have some kind of introduction tour. So my name is MERVI JANHUNEN RUUSUVUORI, and I'm coming from Finland. I'm CEO of one local settlement association, Settlementi Tampere, and I'm also a board member of a Finnish Settlement Association and a member of board of IFS. I'm a social worker, I'm a grandmother.
Good morning to you all. It's nice to see you from time to time from this side. You look nice. I am Adriana Persia. I am from Rome, from Italy. In this case, I represent ARCS with this difficult name, but beautiful organization. It is an organization based in Rome, involved in international cooperation, humanitarian aid, and education. And also, in a way, I am represented ARCI, which is a community organization, a national federation of local centers.
Hello, I'm BULCSU Mihály. I have got two faces because I'm a university teacher and I'm a member of a little NGO which fighting for a tenants group in a settlement in a segregated area in Budapest. So I'm a social worker and my task is to encourage NGOs and encourage excluded people in Hungary. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'm Nick. I'm the chief exec of an organisation in the UK called Community Organisers. And I think that's all I can share for now.
Okay. So, my name is MERVI. I'm coming from one of the happiest countries in the whole world, Finland, the country of high quality and free education. You could say that it is a real dreamland. Welfare society takes care of everybody. Do we need in the country like that community organizations at all? Yes, we do. I'm coming from the country where racism is very common. We also have domestic violence, sexual harassment and sexual violence, unrelated violence. Many people, also very young ones, are drug addicted or they have an alcohol problem. Young people don't get help when they have mental problems. People are lonely. There are only 5.6 million inhabitants in Finland, and every day 2 people commit suicide. I think that everybody have some basic needs. At first, everyone wants to feel important. And second, everyone wants to belong to a community. That is why we need community organizations. Life should be meaningful. A person needs other people. Everyone must have the right to receive help in a difficult life situation. That is the reason why we work in Settlement Society Tampere. You don't need to be alone. You don't need to struggle without help and support when you have difficult life situation. You are welcome to Settlement Society Tampere. So welcome to Finland. There we respect each person's rights and we accept people's differences. Our 75 employees and 150 volunteers are ready to work with you. Not for you, but with you.
Hello, I'm BULCSU Mihály. I'm a social worker, and that's tricky because in Hungary there's no real distinction between the social work and community work. And as you work with social solidarity and you encourage people to their way, you suddenly became an activist and then a radicals. So in Hungary there are prohibited words and non-advised words as a social justice, immigration, as a social inclusion, and refugee. And I'm proud that many of the initiatives came from my departure, the social work department in ELTE, the university, and because many NGOs have walk on these ways as try to encourage people and establish NGOs and can reach people in excluded area in the country and excluded situation. As a lot of colleagues and me, we are volunteering, and the range is really wide where we volunteering and where to work. There's some of my students encourage pregnant Ukrainian Roma refugee women and self-help group organize themselves, and a lot of people try to work in segregated area in the countryside, and I am try to encourage tenants and in a slum area which convinced to demolish, and I try to make tenants group and try to help them with the negotiations. So that's, I think I convinced that every intellectual has the task to encourage NGOs in Hungary, and I am really really like Peter's job because the international connections and the international support is really important for Hungary. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I will bring you instead in Rome. But I don't want to speak about my organization because we usually speak about our organization and our work. But in this case, I want to bring you in what I call the horizontal city. Because Rome, being a capital, of course, it has something that I call the vertical city. It means the city of the institutions, the city of the ministries, and so on. Where the powers also have their physical places. But also, I can see that more and more in time of crisis, especially after COVID-19 pandemic, there is what I call the horizontal city. And the horizontal city is a variety and diversity of community spaces, community organizations, but also informal groups, but also popular sport groups, a lot of different entities which are formal but also informal, and which are really doing the community work. What they do a lot of different things. They organize social services where there is a lack of social services. They organize cultural activities. They organize sport, popular activities. They organize public events. But they are really diverse. But they have few things in common that I think that are very, very important. And what are these things? First, they have usually they are auto-organizing themselves, so they have an horizontal governance. They are retaking or reappropriating of public spaces. You can see this picture, for instance, I didn't choose it because it's my neighborhood. Because usually this place is completely empty, and this was instead an event with a famous Italian actor based in Rome, and there were really thousands of people in this event. What they do also, they are very radical and transformative. They are very radical because they say they organize social services, they organize cultural activities, but at the same time, they demand them to the institution. So they don't just do it in an assistential approach, but they also claim for them from the institution that should deliver them. Also, they are mutualistic. We call mutualism an approach that is cooperative and is and inclusive, and is against individualistic and competitive approach. They are, and also what is very important, they take care together of social issues and environmental issues. For instance, what they do is to support people that lose the jobs, or to claim for job opportunities, but at the same time, together with environmental movements like Fridays for Future or others that you have also in your countries. And so to bring these two fights together against neoliberalism. And in my opinion, I think it would be really important for all our organizations to look at these informal communities, because they are really deep in the community they organize, and to share also their approach.
You know, just hearing those stories, I did have some notes, but I'm not going to use them. I'm just going to share a brief story. I run an organization called Community Organisers, and we work with community organizations to support them to galvanize and mobilize local people on the issues that they care about. That image there is of residents in Lambeth in London who came together to organise around housing issues and make their demands to the local council to improve the housing conditions that they live in. But I think the reality is, in most of the communities that we work with across the UK, we experience what I might call an inversion of democracy, where democracy's kind of been turned upside down, and that actually people for too long now expect things to be done for them and to them. And actually, what that means is that in a lot of the communities, the reality is when we speak to people and when we listen to them, they actually tell us stories that they don't feel any power. They feel powerless to affect change. They don't think that anything ever will change, and that actually the decisions that are made for them are made hundreds and hundreds of miles away from the communities that they come from. And the people making those decisions are not the people who they feel represent them or reflect them. That actually the people making the decisions don't sound or act or behave like any of the people that they would want them to be. So we have a problem, despite the fact we have lots of communities organising for change, we have a problem where actually the distance between people and their ability to affect change is increasing. And across the UK, we've been working to develop and mobilise local people on these local issues. And when COVID hit, COVID was a defining moment for our organisation, because we realised that actually many of the people who had deep relationships in communities became the frontline responders to the crisis, supporting people, no longer organising and mobilising people for power, but actually they had deep relationships. They knew who they could support. They knew who was most at risk, which asked the question of us, what's our job? What's our role as a national organisation being a convener of this network? So we ran a listening campaign across the organisations that we work with. And we started to hear the stories of the issues that people were hearing. And actually, for the first time ever in our organisation, we managed to find the issues that were deeply felt and widely held across the entire network. And the biggest issue that they were facing was lack of internet access and internet connectivity. Because actually, in many low-income communities in the UK, people cannot afford fixed broadband. Many people rely on mobile broadband, and actually that's really, really expensive because they couldn't have contracts. They were pay-as-you-go or these rolling tariffs. So we launched a campaign called Operation Wi-Fi, calling for the largest free-to-use wireless network for low-income communities. It seemed obvious, it seemed simple. If the telecommunications industries could turn on the internet accesses in communities, low-income people could get online and do what we ordinarily would take for granted. It was interesting because overnight, that mobilized 50,000 impressions on social media, and we rapidly got the attention of national media and politicians. Why was it interesting for us? Because actually it showed the power of the collective of community organizations acting together on a single issue. Over a sort of a 9-month campaign, we built an alliance of over 100 organizations, all of whom asking for the same thing, and it got the attention of O2 or O2 Telefonica. I'm sure you probably got similar, I think O2 operate across Europe. O2 got in touch with us because we had a simple ask. The ask was that if I can donate a tin of food to a food bank, if at the end of the month I have mobile phone data, why can I not donate that to a national data bank where people who can access mobile phone data in a time of crisis? I'm really pleased to say that in the UK now we have a national data bank where if you don't have mobile phone data to do the things that others take for granted, doctor's appointments in the UK, they're now online. If you want to go do your job search, if you don't do your job search in the UK, you get sanctioned. If you want to apply for housing, again, which is done online, all these things we take for granted. Well, actually, you can now go to a data bank. You can say, without judgment, may I have some mobile phone data? I cannot afford it. And they can top up your mobile phone. Why do I tell that story? Because we heard earlier a quote which said, "We the people." And actually, that's really, really important because if we're all working across our countries with hundreds, maybe even thousands of grassroots community organisations, if we can find the common issues that are deeply felt and widely held across all of those organisations, we have an opportunity to mobilise those organisations to bring about the policy changes that we want to see.
It's very interesting what you said, what you all said, but specifically the simple ask is something that always is a question in my mind, because we ask, you see, the social justice conference. So we demand, we claim for social justice, but then when we go a bit deeper in our requests, maybe this is a question that I can share with you, is exactly what are we asking for? This is always my practical question, what we claim if our work will be done very well and tomorrow we are unemployed because our organization disappear, what is the objective we reached concretely? And this is something that it's really an open question because there are so many concrete and practical changes and also political and systemic changes, as they were saying also for the European Commission, that it's very difficult time to time for us also to design the borders of this ask. So maybe I will not say nothing, but ask to you, which are the concrete tasks that you would like to highlight?
For me, social justice is nothing than without them, and this means that we have got a lot of services from the government, from the charity organization, and lots of service supposed to be what I want to do. That's not help what I want to do. I help you as a way I like it, and you should be regret. So that's a big dilemma in my country, that we try to make services exactly where they are, the people, and we try to encourage them to ask and try to make their aims, because I believe in partner relationships, and that's not normal now in Eastern Europe, that the help is up to down. I think that should be vertical.
When I studied at early 1990s in university, I studied social policy and social work. I was really impressed when I heard about Paulo Freire and empowerment. And then I worked quite many years as a social worker in public sector, and I realized that empowerment, it's not very easy because we had many kind of rules and so on, what we could do and what not. And nowadays I'm happy when I'm working in settlement and in NGO, because now we have a possibility, and I have a possibility to ask from people what they want, what they need, and we can develop our work to the right direction. Anyway, in our organization, Settlementi Tampere, there are working around 75 people, and they all are qualified, high educated professionals. So many times we have, because we are providing free services to people, for example, if they have had a domestic violence, or if they have, if they are immigrants and they are lonely and so on. So nowadays we have thought about future quite much. Should we move more to that direction, what Adriana, you told? So maybe we should go more outside from our meeting points and from our offices, and try to learn more from those so-called fourth sector movements, which are not really organized NGOs. They are just doing and asking and so on. Because I think that they maybe have a deeper understanding about social justice.
We were supposed to have a Q&A session right after that. It's a conversation with all of us in 30 seconds, but please.
Thank you very much, because I'm also, as you see, like Tarja said, that impatient, so we Finnish ladies seem to be impatient, so my name is Satu. My question is, actually, I was thinking at the same time when MERVI began to talk about this, should we go more to the fourth sector? And I'm thinking about the future of NGOs, that how can we invite in the future more workers to the NGOs and more volunteers as young people, because I see that there's some difference in the ideas how young people normally think and wish to act. So how do you see the future of NGOs? Or how could we invite more young people to work with us, with the people?
I'm happy to start and then can pass along. I just want to say on the issue of social justice, for us in the UK, for me, if we were to address issues relating to social justice, I would say that the only simple ask I would have is that opportunity is not defined by the postcode in which you live or your address. And I think for me, that is the biggest issue, that actually opportunity is not equally spread. Going back to your point about social organizations, I think that, so we work with community organizations to help them to reconnect with the communities and the people that they work with, and to, at the same time, think about how they can galvanize and build social movements. I think, what we saw during the COVID pandemic was this upsurge of social movements, community organizations who perhaps didn't have the same structures and the same operating models as NGOs. But that's not to say that they can't work together. They just need to find common ground. Young people, people organizing on issues, whether that be issues around the climate, migration, housing, LGBTQ plus issues, whatever those issues might be, what we need to find is how community organizations can be the facilitators of that. How can community organisations facilitate and create the conditions in local places that allow social movements to thrive? Because actually, social movements that aren't operating in a place, they're often not neighbourhood based. They're either regional or national or indeed international. And what the job of these community organisations is to find ways of facilitating conversations in local places that can build on and galvanise social movements, to strengthen them, to ensure that there's greater inclusion in them. So for me, I think community organisations have got an important role to play at a very place level.
Okay, so I will answer to my own question first, and then also maybe also to your question. When I was thinking what we claim as political asks, I was thinking about I find very interesting the informal conversations we have among us more than the formal ones. And before that, during the coffee break, I was speaking with some colleagues and we were just reflecting on these kind of events and on the fact that we don't have time to follow all the events also of other organizations that are very interesting, or our own organization events. And we were saying we are working so much. And I think this simple sentence is something that really is not related to the beneficiaries we have, it's not related to the people we work with or we work for, but it's related also to our lives. So if I should say, if I should have some political asks, this is including also how we are living and how the jobs are thinking and implemented. And so I would say dignity in the jobs, but I mean, of course, there are people that are really suffering or are without jobs, but also people that are overworking, and this is not fair for anyone. I would say that what I've said before, the link between social justice related to job and environmental justice is a key in this moment. And also what I would claim for is cultural activities in public spaces, as the picture that I show you, because this is what after job and after the world in which you live that should resist makes you happy at the end of the day, no? To join cultural activities. And also regarding your question, I don't know if we need to have more young volunteers or staff. Of course, it's something very useful, but just what I think is that we have just to listen what they claim for, because if you think, I'm sure that also in the squares of your cities, the squares are full when they claim for, again, environmental justice, for climate justice, and for gender issues, for violence against women. And in Italy, this is what makes the square full of young people. So it's not that we have to do something very, very strange, just to listen to them and to do something together.
Thank you, Adriana. Maybe we can go online and see if there's any question or intervention from our friends on the Zoom. If not, maybe a reaction or any questions from the audience. So BULCSU, go on.
Okay, that's all the time there's a question, what is the future in my country? And there's all the time there's a question, in my country, especially what you are hope. I just all the time say that's my best phrase, which is botanically completely wrong, that under the pressure can grow the palm. This in Hungary, this is a quite sentence. And I remember we have to emphasize the thinking of social solidarity. We have to emphasize as an international community that social justice should exist, and inclusion is an aim. And that can be a really great, because volunteering in Hungary is not so popular, and NGO is not so supported, I think, actually not. And I all the time remember to my father during the communism try to sell newspapers for the opposite, which is officially not existed. So there's used to be volunteers, and volunteers exist, and there's lots of young people we can invite, we can involve, but we have to emphasize and have to convince or aims and or thinking about the future.
But what I think that we need in future, I think that we need all those informal groups, many kind of community work. We need also NGOs where qualified professionals can work, and where they can demand the official system to make better services to people in many kind of difficult life situations. And we need really much cooperation inside in our own country, but also international cooperation, because most of the problems are not just local, and I think that we can learn so much from each other. So for example, I was really impressed about your story, Nick, and I think that in many countries they could do the same.
So it's not always, of course, but no, I know that you are doing a very good work, and you are encouraging people also to see that this is an citizenship solidarity. But for instance, if I take an example from our own country, that we have had now few years, we have had this kind of second harvest system also, that we are giving food assistance for the people who are outside of the social systems. But then they studied about these people who are in queuing, and for some people it was a great surprise that they were, many of them were also quite middle-class people, and why they were queuing was that they have their own apartments, or the others, mainly it was housing system, that they wanted to pay whatever they have money for the bank, because the last thing they wanted to lose was their house, their home. And then, of course, it's good that they got the food, but I would ask that they didn't do too much in that in Finland, that they would ask also the root causes, that why the system of the social security is such kind that even if you have too little money to pay your housing expenses or your loans, and you have got them in, how could I say, in reasonable way, so that in the matter of fact, the food queues, they were helping the banking system to get their money back. So there has not been too much in how could I say, demonstrations against that, because people think that it's part of the market system. But how much you are encouraging people also to see the root causes, how much you can encourage them to also to be activists in that side. And after my question, he cannot stop me, because he's too polite. I say that when you have heard all the time these negative sides what we have in the country, so when we were, I think now we have been 5 times the happiest people in the world, they heard to know, and they asked in the street from the man that, what do you think about that you are again the happiest people in the world? The response was, really? Is the situation of the world so miserable that we are the happiest one? Okay.
Thank you.
I mean, I will.
1 second, you have one.
I will quickly respond in that As an organisation, we are facilitating in the UK the Cost of Living Alliance, which is trying to address this issue. We heard stories of people in food bank queues who are nurses, taxi drivers, people who are ordinarily people who can't afford to live because they've been plunged into crisis. My response, my question to everybody, which we can maybe have as a reflection, is despite the efforts and endeavours of local people, and when we talk to local people, they talk about feeling powerless, but they can see a potential and they can see a future and they can see what a better future would look like. But when they get to the ballot box, they still, what we're seeing is a rise of the right. We're seeing increasing politicians and being elected who are elected on the basis of polarization and they're creating division. My question is, how do we get into a position where we can have conversations with local people to think carefully about the futures of their communities and the decisions that have been taken for them? Because we are getting increasingly more polarized across our communities. And it's a result of political division, which I think is intentional, but that's my view, not any view of the organisation. And I think we need to think carefully about how we can more deeply encourage reflection and possibility in communities through conversations with local people to address this increasing polarisation.
Hi, Charlie Fisher here from Development Trust Sinai in Northern Ireland. And can I just thank the conference organisers and can I also thank the panel for their contributions to the conversation. I just want to be provocative, if I may. Do you know what I mean? I think social justice is some way off, if I'm honest. I think we deal with the excesses of the failures of government in terms of marginalisation and poverty and ill health, physical and mental, homelessness, migration and climate action. And I think what we do is we offer hope through creating opportunities for social inclusion. And in social inclusion, we build social capital, and through social capital, we create and strengthen that hope in terms of system change. But at the end of the day, my question, I suppose, is this, are we managing poverty? Are we managing social exclusion? And are we managing marginalisation? Or are we actively making strides towards realising the hope that we're offering people in terms of system change? And what do we need to do to turn the dial so that we get more effective system change across our respective nations and our union as a whole?
I try to answer, but my answer is so specific because I came from another part of the EU. So I involved to a Hungarian organization, NGO, and we realized that there's a real social injustice about the tenants. They want to demolish a slum and they want to just the gypsy families go out to everywhere where they want. So we decided to make some self-help group. And in the first 2 years, we all the time went to the mayor when they collected and tried to make political decisions. And we went there and tried to demonstrate. And I was 2 times in the police office, and there which we reached is only about talking about the BULCSU is the hero, and you are an activist, you are a radical, me. I am an anarchist, so we decided another way that we organized a self-help group in front of and near the mayor office and in the city center in Kőbánya. So everybody in Kőbánya had spoken about the street problem and the social injustice in the district. So I think first in my opinion, in my thinking, that we have to make the problem visible, which not means that making nice photos. That's a dilemma in Hungary also, because lots of journalists think if I go to a settlement area and make some nice photos about hunger, gypsy children, that's really good for art, really good for activists, really good for social change, but that's not enough. I think we should emphasize our values and try to make visible the program. In Hungary, of course, there's a lot of immigrants and refugees which are not exist officially. We have to emphasize they have got the right to live and the NGOs task in to reach them, and the NGOs task to encourage the democratic groups. And as a university lecturer, I also my task to talk about my students, and I think every intellectual task in the high school in my country.
Thank you, BULCSU. We'll have one quick answer from the audience. This is Sona.
Hi, thanks for, I found these last two questions really hit the mark of what is going on in people's mind. And when we go back to our workplace, these are the things that dominate our heads, and about the increasing division. And I was wondering whether, as we're mobilizing communities, as we're supporting people with all the challenges that they're facing, maybe the focus of that campaigning and effort is around saying and having the discussion within our roles and positions. There's so much extraction. Trading is not the problem. It is, where does the benefit of that trading go? Where is that resource moving to? Who is benefiting? Is it for the few? Is it for the many? Because our children, multiple generations are losing out because that reinvestment, that community, the community creates the wealth, but the wealth is moving out of the neighborhoods. And I say this from a history of working in neighborhoods where local people challenged a large-scale international developer to stop them building extractive luxury flats. This is in Tottenham, very famous for rioting every 25 years, which is a long time to leave it, really. But I'm thinking that could be something that could mobilize people irrespective of their political perspective, or whether they are a refugee, or whether they like refugees or they don't like refugees, or they like migration or they don't like migration, whatever, is we need that common force where people can say, yes, I don't like money leaving my neighborhood. I like it coming back to jobs, housing for us. We need the us. That was the point.
And just very quickly.
Thank you, Sona.
Thank you, Sona. I think what you're touching on there is the important point of, I've been around people for a long time calling for systems change, and I've become to realise that actually there's no point, because actually the people responsible for changing the system aren't going to change it, because actually the system works and it works really well for them. I think what you're touching on there, Sona, is systemic change, where we're going to go beyond the realm of the system to start thinking about how we can address some of those deeper issues that are affecting people. So I agree with what you're saying. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone. There is one thing that I'm sure, that we've been here for 100 years. So we built trust and confidence with the people. No other organizations can do what we do, the way we do. We lasted so long, committed to the communities, working hands to hands to make their voices heard. This is very special, and that's what we've been doing for 100 years. The confidence and the trust qualifies us to make their voice heard and let them be the change they want to see. Thank you very much for our great panelists. Thank you for the Q&A.
I'm happy to introduce the next speaker, NASIMA RAZMYAR. Those who were in the city reception last night have already met her. We have few quite good reasons to have NASIMA here, and one of the most important ones, she's a very good person, and she's very, very committed to our work in this movement. And she is the former board member of the Finnish Federation, and she's the former president of the biggest youth organization in our movement in Finland. Third, she is, was it already a fourth? But anyway, the good reason is that she is a member of the Finnish Parliament right now. She is deputy chair Yeah, oh yeah, Tarja. Okay, she's everything. So she's a deputy mayor of the capital of Finland, Helsinki. She's a deputy chair of the Social Democrat Party, which is the biggest party in Finland. However, it is in opposition. And NASIMA is very well-known face in our media nowadays because she's one of the leader opposition politicians in Finland. So we're happy to have you here. NASIMA, you are welcome.
Well, thank you, Pentti, so much. I think, well, it's very hard to start to speak after this kind of introduction, but it's wonderful to be here with you today, dear friends. And although it seems that there's outside a bit cold, but I feel that it's so warm here to being with you, to being with this great movement and coming from the political side. I was telling yesterday that actually this is very healthy for me to see what's happening on the ground, on the grassroots level, and to see that there is hope. When I'm seeing you, I truly believe that there is hope even in our countries, although the situations and future might be a little bit difficult for us. But dear friends, thank you for the great panel discussion, especially in the end. I think we went to quite hard questions that we need to face and also need to discuss about it and to realize what is the future of civil society. The role of community organizations has been extremely important in Finland, as we have heard. Just to let you know that in Finland, we can really truly call ourselves as a land of associations. There are more than 123,000 associations, if I'm correct, but I can say that it's more than 100,000. So in population of 5.5 million people, it's quite a lot, and it tells a lot about our society, and it tells a lot about the Finnish people who are very involved in different type of associations, from the soccer to settlement. And we were talking why we are the happiest nation. It's true. Whenever this comes, Finnish people are, no, this is not correct. This is not correct. But I would say that maybe this is one of the reasons why we are the happiest nation in the world, and also that we like to pay taxes. I think that's another very good reason, and that's also the basic of our society and the basic of the foundation, because when you have the structures which works when it comes to education, when it comes to social and healthcare services, when it comes to city planning, when it comes to security, usually those are the nations and lands that can be quite happy. But unfortunately, Finland is also changing. The polarization that we have been seeing in many other countries in Europe, we can see it in Finland quite clearly nowadays. Of course, I'm speaking from the perspective of opposition, but I'm truly worried about the direction that we are taking also in our society. We can see that, like in the panel you discussed very well, that usually the system will take care of itself, but what happens elsewhere, and that's what we can see in today's, in our political system. And when it comes to resources, for example, lifelong learning, which has been in Finland extremely important. Education is extremely important for us. It's not only from early childhood to compulsory education, but it has been always the lifelong learning. But now, from things like this, which has been extremely important for our society, the government is, for example, cutting. In the situation where you know that you need more education, you need more learning through your whole age, through your whole life, and this is not the place to cut, but unfortunately, this is what we have been seeing also in Finland at the moment. But I would still say that we have been managing in many areas. Me personally, Pentti told quite my history in politics, but I would like to tell you from my background and from my childhood. I was born in Afghanistan. I came as a refugee to Finland, and for a refugee family, my father quite often was telling to us that, you know, we lost everything, but this might be the country where we can build our life, and things will never be perfect, of course, for a family who simply has lost everything. But on the other hand, you have a country where you are safe, very secure, and more importantly, the country which take care of the children, which take care of education. And those are so important structures in our system, in our political system, that we cannot lose. Civil society organizations, I think in Finland, elsewhere in the world, in Europe, you should demand more. The settlement movement we can see today here, you are very strong. We are very strong in Finland, but we can be stronger when we have the movement around the Europe, and now we can see the effect of it. And there, I think we need to use our voice. We need to use our voice internationally, but we need to use our voice also locally. I know it's very hard in a very polarization situation that we are having at the moment in our countries, where actually we are not anymore discussing with each other. We don't have a dialogue. People are searching information from TikTok. We have, you know, social media, which is basically handling the whole political discussion, social discussion, and what we used to see, what we have been used to build in Finland, for example, among associations, among organizations, it has been more and more face-to-face interaction. And now, unfortunately, the very basic things are demanded very much. So I believe that on top of all of, you know, very rapidly changing world that we are having in front of us, we need to go to the basic things. We need to go to basic things when it comes to how we see other people, what kind of places we have to provide assistance for people, what kind of places we have for people just to be heard and seen. Quite simple things, very simple things. But I believe that in the situation where we are existing at the moment, this will be needed more than ever. So yes, be stronger, to have a strong voice. And it's always easier to have a strong voice when you have other people around Europe having that voice with you. And you know that I don't need to tell you why associations, why organizations, why civil society is important. We all know that, you know, you can be big, you can be small at the same time. We can be very fast on certain issues to do things when in the bigger structures, it takes a lot of time. So we all know the benefit of associations and also civil society. But dear friends, as I mentioned, you know, born in a country which is the worst place for a mother, Afghanistan, I can say that I have lived my life in a country which is the best place for a mother, for our parents. We have a lot of, like Mervi was saying, our situation is not perfect, but at the same time, we need to be grateful of the things that we have, for example, in Finland. And to conclusion, I want to remind everyone that as we navigate these times that are truly difficult for us, let us not take anything for granted, nothing for granted. Our commitment to the European Union and international community and the pursuit of peace is being tested all the time. And I can say that like never before. Internal and external threats loom on the horizon, demanding our collective resilience, the resilience that we need so much during these times. Therefore, we must stand on the side of humanity. Let's talk about humanity, the need of humanity. We need to be architects of change, architectures of defenders of dialogue, and the champions of societies that embrace diversity, justice, and sustainability. Together with our civil society, we strive the ecological and socially sustainable countries. Beacons of progress and also compassion. We need to discuss more about compassion, something that we need all in our lives so much during these days. How we feel, how we see other people, how we, for example, in our schools with small children, I have said that the basic needs and the basic tools that our children need today, of course, it's reading and writing, but morely social and our social and emotional skills, the emotional skills that keep us also understanding what's happening elsewhere and how to see other people. So humanity, that's what we need. So dear friends, I think I have used my time more than I was given. Thanks again for being here, and thanks for giving people like us who are in a quite cold political system at the moment to see that there's warmness and that there's a hope. And whatever you think that seems to be difficult, I know you are struggling with many issues also in your countries, in your associations, but at the same time, you have to see that you have the same target. You have the same target, and usually that helps us very, very much. And that's what I worry very much in our national levels, in a political level, that we don't have any more that same story that we built the Finnish country. We don't have any more the same target, and that can destroy us. But before doing that, we need our great civil society that will hopefully help us and guide us to the future. So thank you so much, and it was great to be here with you. Thank you.
Hello everyone, so I'm Staffan LINDQVIST, and I'm so happy to see you all here today, but there are two persons that I am extra happy to meet here in Strasbourg. And I will give you a short background. Shortly after the Russian attack on Ukraine, there was a Swedish youth worker who reached out to the Ukrainian Association for Youth Work, and he made it possible to have meetings with this organization once a week, Friday at 9 o'clock every Friday, to discuss the situation and to see how we could be able to support the youth work in Ukraine. Soon enough, there were people from many countries who came within the IFS network that came to these meetings. Nowadays, we are meeting every second Friday morning for discussions. So I have met these people virtually for almost 2 years, but now finally I have been able to meet them in person. So it is Veronica and Olena from the Ukraine National Youth Organization. So please, Olena, can you give us little remarks about the situation that you have in your country?
So I just try to maybe explain the situation with youth workers and youth leaders, youth organization and youth centers, because I'm present organization who work actually in this field. So just try to be short. So how are you? It's a common question we usually ask our guests in our chat after each missile strike. We hope that everyone is safe and alive, and the people answer in the chat. Now is a blackout in many cities in Ukraine, so we cannot talk via Zoom, but we still can use the chat of short messenger. In February 24, we wake up in the new reality. Youth organization mobilizate their resources to support army. Youth spaces become shelters for displaced people. Some youth leaders went to military service, some stay and volunteers, some of them need to be evacuated. Just after several days, we understand that we have a big trouble with regional youth centers in Chernivtsi because it was destroyed. And we have a center and youth center that was occupied. Regional youth centers and in Luhansk and Donetsk region be evacuated, and they evacuate their staff. Youth hub in occupied areas were destroyed. We see result just now after they occupied Kharkiv and Kherson region. We still don't know many history about people who work there. We expect to have some hope to meet them in the future, but now still we don't know. And for us, it's really terrible and traumatized story. We have our dream before war, and during these 8 years, we are product and building new reforms to realize what we contribute in democracy and freedom. So before war, we managed establishment youth policy dialogue and legal framework for youth centers and youth council. We had already a system of youth work. We working of inclusion, education, advocacy, and felt more closer to Europe. And despite of several international political problems, we realized that we are moving forward, and we hope to keep our country together. We all facing humanitarian challenges in Ukraine and try to help people in need. The youth organizations are effective in delegate humanitarian aid and evacuation. But we also wanted not to forget about time to peace and to use every possibility to create contribution for resistance. That's why we have managed to conduct organizational summer camps for youth and adults, organize workshop in youth space. And actually, your network was a part of this resource for this summer camp. So thank you so much. It was a really great event for children and youth in Ukraine to have some safety place in this summer. So thank you so much. And we also keep to the place warm for the winter and not to stop for usually activities. We cannot forget about peer saving and the army, because military volunteering is also the big issue for us to supply people with the ammunition device they need to fulfill their work and to save their lives. But we must learn to lose the people. Many people want to service from peaceful professional, and the most things we want to have them back. We all dream of how to adapt to peaceful life, but we realize that peace for us means victory. And we are trying to restore youth work. The youth space becomes shelters, but we are happy to see how youth centers provide non-formal education and create consult for young people again after 2 years of war. And at the same time, we still turn to advocacy. We still feel that at the time of war, there are no young people. The social roles are very simple. You are child or adult. No transition, nothing in between this. Young people need to be adults very quickly. We will face the result in the future, and we think about this, to keep in mind that we will have many thousands young veterans, volunteers and young professionals who will need support, oriental and adaptation. Many of them are members of youth organizations who use the skills and knowledge to manage crisis situations. The civil society is the core action in this war, and we dream to become much more stronger and recognized. We provide the civil society structure, including youth organization, capital to face any challenges, and we want to engage our capacities in the future. Young people and young professionals face the collapse of education system. We all know that education in the time of missile strike, sirens, attacks, lack to electricity and displacement remains raised formally. Children and youth need adaptation to the education to keep their level at least not lower as before the war. It's very difficult now to work interactually or take some decision about future professional when you live in time when the human lives can end just now. But sometimes it will be the end, and the issue of inclusion we target many people. It will mean a lot of works to us, but we hope that with you and our neighbors in Europe, that we have this result like a winner. So thank you so much.
Van Mierler from LSA, and I and some other nice colleagues decided it was really time for a new declaration, and recognizing the fact that fun is a very, very powerful tool. Fun is not a luxury. It's an essential element of human well-being and social cohesion, as probably everyone has ever experienced. Fun meetings create an inclusive, vibrant space within the communities and in enabling individuals to connect, engage, and collaborate more effectively. It's really like a declaration, so I'm really sorry. We have a few main points. I've condensed it down already, but still, this is really important for you to know. We emphasize the importance of creating inclusive environments that prioritize enjoyment and camaraderie. This is something that's very IFS-ish to do. And therefore, we were building on experience, on lived experience we had within the project. Through joy, we enhance participation, creativity, collaboration, and leading to more equitable outcomes within projects that promote social justice and beyond. We advocate for the recognition and protection of the right to have fun meetings within communities. We commit ourselves to implementing these principles, so you will be taking the next steps by incorporating fun activities, engaging meetings, and interactive approaches in our projects. We try to infuse enjoyment into our work, we amplify its impact, and we create spaces where individuals feel inspired, connected, and empowered. And because it's a declaration, we are also advocating for something, and we want policy change. We want the policies to recognize the importance of fun in fostering social justice, to institutionalize its significance, ensure its integration into our community development. And by prioritizing, sorry, there's a window popping up. Prioritizing the right to have fun meetings, we aim to create communities around joy, social connections. The thing is, as everyone has probably experienced, event where there is no fun and where there is no joy and nothing that sparks your heart and makes you enjoy what you're doing are really tedious. And if we can avoid that, and IFS and EFS are really, really good in avoiding that, we want to take you the next step.
So the next step, while this fun technician works out, is, come on, juniors. This lady and I, we had an idea together. What was our idea?
We would like to sing along with you, and we have a special song that's gonna sparkle joy and fun in the conference room.
This was planned to make you laugh. 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 This was Nothing can bring us down. Have you had enough or more? Happy, 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 happy. Justice. Feel like a room without a roof. Social healthy up along if you feel like quality is the truth. Justice. If you feel like inclusion is to you. Social justice. That's what you want to do. Well done!
Thank you.
So now you can stop having fun, because now we are going to be deadly serious. And it's an honor for me to soon be unveiling the IFS policy recommendation and the white paper. But before I start to do that, I will say something about the process that led to these policy recommendations, because it was a rather long journey and a learning process. One of the main goals of the Fostering Social Justice project was this white paper, including policy recommendations. And the coordination role for that was given to the Swedish Federation of Settlements. We decided to have a policy recommendation work group that was created, and it was consisting of representatives from France and Germany, the Netherlands, Italy, and Finland. And we had regular meetings where we discussed structure and content of these recommendations. But we also had a little reference group with board members from some of our partner organizations. So we were meeting and discussing about this in the beginning. We decided also to use the experiences from all these wonderful study trips that was made within the project. In October 22, we had a capitalization seminar in Berlin, and all the coordinators from the partner organizations were there. And we went through a theory of change process led by one of our friends from locality in UK. And that process, the result of that process, together with the experiences from the study trips, was led to the first draft of the policy recommendations. And during the spring and summer 2023, several drafts were made. So there were a lot of amendments, and we developed the paper. And tomorrow, these policy recommendations, they will be presented at the EU Parliament here in Strasbourg, and it is addressed to the European Union, but the idea is that it can also be used in national and municipal, local discussions, and with funding applications that are made by our different members. So hopefully this will be a tool that will be used for many of our members. Many people have been involved in creating this paper, and I don't have the time, possibility to name them all, but there are some people I really have to put forward and thank. And firstly, it's Claudie Miller and Patricia Brenner, who was the driving forces in creating the whole project. And secondly, we have got a lot of help of Leon Osborne from Locality, who is not here, but still. And he led us through this theory of change, and he also put together the final version of this paper. So, the white paper is including this. The white paper is including this policy recommendation, and the name of the white paper is "We're Right Here: to empower people to develop communities and strengthening democracy." And that is what we are doing in our network. And that leads us into policy recommendation number 1. I will here only go through them quite quickly, but you will have the possibility to read more about them in the white paper when you will get that later on. So, the first policy recommendation is promoting the non-formal learning provided by neighborhood centers and continuing to support national and international exchange programs. The non-formal learning is done every day in our member organizations, and it can be language cafes for immigrants, it can be music making, it can be dancing. So there's a lot of learning going on every day, and that is like the core of what we are doing in the settlement, in the neighborhood centers. I'm talking only, and in this white paper we are only talking about neighborhood centers, and that is just to use one word for it, even if, of course, it's obvious that we are using a lot of different words for this kind of houses and centers over the world. But the idea is the basic values is the same for us all, whatever we call ourselves. Then we go to number 2. And that is about securing access to good quality local community spaces open to all. And we think it is extremely important that it is possible to have places together in all local communities. We know where authoritarian regimes, even if it is in cities or if it is in countries, they usually counteract or they make it difficult for NGOs to do what they are doing. It has happened that they are closing down places where people meet, libraries, community centers, and that kind of stuff, because probably they are afraid that people will go together and be a threat against them if they have the possibility. So securing this access is extremely important also for social cohesion and development of communities. And then we have a policy recommendation number 3. And that is about securing long-term and sustainable core funding for neighborhood centers based on trust. The historical thing for and the role for NGOs is to be close to local residents, to see what is needed, and to find new and creative ways to support and to solve these needs. But quite often nowadays it is so that the authorities tells the NGOs what they shall do. And then there is maybe not so much space for development if it's already decided what they shall deliver, so to say. It is like the logic from a market liberal idea that I don't think suits NGOs very well or any local resident at all. So we would say to secure core funding that is based on trust, that you are able to give support to NGOs and trust that they are doing good things, that they are meeting the needs of the local society. I think that is the best. And then, of course, things have to be checked maybe every third year or something and see if something is happening. But for the social society to find the solutions, and then the public authorities can take over the ideas and make them regular, so to say. And this is something that has happened with, with ambulances, with kindergartens, and all these social services that we talk about when we talk about welfare state. That is something that have started with NGOs. Okay, let's go to policy recommendation number 4. This is something else that is important, and that is to support local knowledge alliances, where local residents, civil society organizations, academia, and local decision makers contribute to information sharing and gathering about local needs. Who knows best what is the need of the local community? Yeah, probably those who lives there. But of course, it is also needed professional skills to find solutions on the needs. So, to have support, to have like a structure where academia, researchers, decision makers, local residents can meet and together find solutions on what is needed, is a very good way on making a good society and a good local community. So we would like to have support and to create this kind of a structure where this will happen. Number 5. Securing and implementing a structured dialogue and consultative process at EU level to collect and use on-the-ground knowledge produced by neighborhood centers. Yeah, we will also like to have like a structure where civil society and authorities can meet on a eye level. So when it comes to the EU level, it could be like European organizations, why not the EFS, for example, to discuss and plan and develop together what is best for residents. But here it says about the EU, but what we also mean that this is like a structure that would be very good to have also on a national, regional and local level, that there are agreements between the state and the national organizations how the relation should be between the civil society and the state, and on the regional level, regional authorities and regional organizations can do the same, and on the local level also. And in this agreement, it should be said what they could expect from each other. That there should be a certain amount of meetings every year, what kind of things they need to decide together, that there should be no big changes without letting others know, and that kind of things. So that is also something that we would like to put forward. Let's go to the last one. And not the least. And this is about directing EU funds to NGOs in countries where public funding is missing. Unfortunately, it is so that the support for NGOs varies a lot in our countries. In some countries, there's quite good support for NGOs. In other countries, we can take Hungary maybe as an example. There is very little support for the NGOs. On the contrary, they are, I think they are fighted by the government. So we think to try to support these NGOs, it's important that there are EU funds that are directed to these countries. And to some extent, it is so already, but it could be even more, and also that there should be a little more easy to apply in them.
So let's hear from the group now.
Yes. I'm representing Group 1, and well, I have to shorten it evidently. There was a great happiness with our policy recommendations that at this time in history we feel like these are good asks to work towards. But concerning what steps we could put in motion to implement and to get the recommendations out to decision makers, we had one very interesting input, I find, that came from Peter. Thank you. Making us aware that since we are a grassroots movement in our core, that we should take the white paper and take it to our community members to really get people involved in the same process we are doing, share the document with them, also discuss the recommendations and how we should go forward. And all the while, at the same time, on EU level and on national level and local municipality and city level, talk to decision makers and present the recommendation, because we want to go from both sides, from grassroots and from decision maker side. This is very, very shortly what we talked about. We talked much more, of course.
Thank you.
Well, this won't be easy. I had a group of anarchists, so we didn't really get into this that we should discuss. But shortly, it was like it's hard to have this document or policies where when you're working in NGOs struggling so much with everyday problem with funding and in your own homes, it's so much more other essential issues. So it's hard to discuss this in the community centers or whatever. And it also came up that they think one thing is that they would like to see more is democracy. They were lacking the word democracy in the policy document. And democracy is the key to change things, make people believe that they have a possibility to change their own situation and the community's situation. To be able to go to this policy document, you have to be more nearby the belief that you actually can be involved in a change. So that we struggled in these discussions, and we really never ever landed in the policy document. So I'm sorry for this but it was a very, very interesting discussion, and I think we all take that with us.
Thank you.
Sorry. Do you agree, group number 2, or would you like to add something? Talking about democracy.
I like to take my moments to be a bit of an authoritarian. So this is going to be my moment. I'm not going to ask my group if they agree. So I am going to cheat a little bit because we had the assignment to pick one thing. But obviously I cannot pick one thing because there were people with different perspectives. But there was one sort of underlying thing. So there were maybe 3 or 4 recommendations that sort of jumped out to people. And that was around the importance of non-formal learning and education, in the sense that there's a difference. And especially in how in some countries funds are tied to one but not the other. So education is somehow valued in a different way than learning. And that also means that sometimes you need to either pick the right words or also restructure the conversations you're having about that. It was about securing access to good quality local community spaces and what that means to the different groups. So sometimes that can be very practical, and sometimes that can be about there not being any spaces. So how are you going to acquire spaces? But it was also about a conversation about the European level. How do we, that was recommendation number 5, how do we actually get to that point where we, quite short term, start having these conversations where we bring the European level a lot closer to the local level. And then we try to tie that together. And that was, I guess, with the call to action to make sure that this is particularly community driven. So we're having these conversations at the moment. We've had these conversations over the last 3 years, but I think the previous group said as well that if we want to talk about sort of non-formal learning and what that means in a community center, then we need to organize around that. Then we need to make sure people have ownership over that process. And you could, I guess, say that for all 6 of these recommendations, even if we want to talk to the EU level, how can we make sure that we don't talk for people, but make sure that a community themselves get to speak sort of truth to power. So that was sort of the thread going through all of these.
Thank you.
Okay. I have been asked to speak slowly. So bear with me. I will try and speak as slowly as I can. Although you rattled through that, I thought, quickly. So what do the recommendations mean to you? In our group, the recommendations were largely felt to tie in with the work that organisations deliver in their respective nations. So there was largely a very positive sort of, people could see themselves in the recommendation. They could see their work in the recommendations, which was very positive. Degrees of difference in that, I think, certainly over issues around language. And Chris talked about the non-formal learning and what that means from one place to another place. But the funding one in particular was of interest to our Netherlands representative. And again, that was echoed by the other people in the room as well. And yeah, I think that's, for us in Northern Ireland, that's part of a really important conversation. For the past 2 years now, and for the past year in particular, we have been without a government and we have been without a budget. And I can tell you, when you do not have a government and you do not have a budget, the first thing that is cut is civic action. And so the civic sector has been decimated as a consequence of that. So I think it is important when we talk about funding, it's about talking about the importance of civic action as a foundation stone for society, and the need for it to be properly resourced as well. We also then, on point 4, on the knowledge alliances, we said, yeah, great. Better policy needs to be co-produced and co-designed, which I don't know in your nations if that's sort of common parlance as well. But quite often co-design and co-production in terms of policy means that central government determines what the policy is, and then consults with you, and then largely ignores what it is that you have to say about it. So I think knowledge alliances is really important, and it's some of the things that we're trying to do in Ireland, is bringing academia, bringing service users in particular, who have a particular knowledge and experience of the particular service they need, whether it's in mental health, for example, or disability, into the room and designing interventions and services based on their experience as well. So that's really good. What else did we have? Yeah, some of the funding stuff came up as well in terms of the difficulties that organisations have in sustaining their core vision and mission, their core work, which is largely always project-based. So you have an organisation which has a core function and a purpose, and how it delivers that is constantly looking at opportunities to draw investment through projects into the organisation. And again, a recognition that some of the core missions of many civic organisations should be properly funded. And then on the point around civic action and civic spaces, yeah, I think we says civic space needs to be seen as a way of life. And in most of our countries, or part of the culture of our countries, it's how we as citizens organise ourselves. It's how we build social capital. It's how we give voice to citizens. And for civic organisations, from our perspective, it's the foundation stone for democracy. And then on point 5, securing and implementing a structured dialogue and consultative process. And we says that's key, that's critical to all of this. You know, we need to have some sort of central organisation, a voice that sits at the top table and can take from all of us, continuing evidence around what's needed, and can locate that at the highest possible level. You know, with regards to question 2, as to what we said we were going to do, we all said we would promote and share widely with members and like organisations. We said we would share with local central government and politicians. We will share with other civic organisations. We will share with academia. We will use the white paper as a lobbying resource, as an advocacy resource for policy change and new programmes, and we'll use it to start a conversation with critical friends around the similarities that exist across civic organisations across the EU, and use that as a basis to sort of pull people into this shared space around what needs to be done. And then I think importantly as well, we'll feed back to EFS, IFS. We'll look to be part of a feedback loop, so the information doesn't die here today or stop here today, so that nation states can take it, do something with it, and feed back the learning from that. I hope that wasn't too fast.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Alexandra. She will speak for her group and then give the concluding remarks.
Exactly. So I will first report. I was the secretary in our group, but then I will not leave. I will stay on for a few more minutes to talk to you a little bit more also about what we do in terms of what you actually were all talking, I think, in your groups. But first, the 5th group, in which we were discussing, I think, very similar things in some ways to what you were describing. I think in our group, we looked immediately at the recommendations in the sense of so what can we do with them, and how, and this very practical perspective of this. So we were talking about the fact that it is a very good tool, that is something that already shows the impact of the work of different organizations in Europe, and we also recognize that it's not always easy, because there is a lot of diversity in Europe, but also within our own countries when you look at how some social centers work. So we said it's a great tool, that it could actually be even a bit like a manifesto. I think that name was mentioned in our group a few times. And we were also discussing on how to actually use it to show this diversity, and to say, and to translate these recommendations not only directly into a different language, but also into different contexts. So these were some points that we have been making sort of throughout the conversation. And we also referred to the full white paper, which is a pretty big document comparatively to what's been extracted. And we were saying that this is great to really show the impact and the key messages that we want to put forward. But what's in the white paper is actually something that also shows you very detailed impact of your work. And you have a table, for example, that explains that very well. But it also shows personal stories. So you have multiple elements that work together that can help you make your case. And then we were also saying that, of course, it's a document, it's a tool that can be used at different levels. And it can also maybe be very useful right now when there are European elections coming, as we all know. And of course, we have the question of how we're going to make our case and call for more social justice also among future candidates. And then in terms of the actual recommendations that were here, I would say that there were two, I think, that came up pretty strongly in our discussions. So one was, or actually I think it's one but two elements of it. So the one on EU funding, and we were discussing, so can we use this tool to advocate for more funding at the EU level, and how would that work? Because ideally, of course, you would have an actual directive or regulation that would come out. And then the second element that was also, I think, connected to the sixth recommendation here is the question of really building trust among organizations, and to say, yes, we are speaking in one voice, but also this is the work that we are already doing, and it's something that is relevant and credible and should be taken seriously. So the fact that it takes time to build that trust, that's something that came up pretty strongly in our group. I'm really happy to be here also and to actually have had that opportunity to get to know your work, because I represent the European Association for the Education of Adults, and we are based in Brussels. And we actually very happy to see some familiar faces and some people who are also connected to our network on this side of the room. So that's really great to see. And I have to say that I arrived, I think, at the perfect moment here. So I arrived when you started introducing the call to have more fun. And that was perfect because my day was not fun up until that point. So it was amazing to wake me up. And then it actually reminded me of something. So I will be talking a little bit about our policy and advocacy work in Brussels. So hopefully also connecting a bit to what you can do with your recommendations that you carefully prepared. And just we had multiple events this week. This is the reason why I said it hasn't been very fun. So we've had the Lifelong Learning Week in Brussels, which is an opportunity for different organizations to organize events and to make their case for lifelong learning, or adult learning in our case. And at one of the events, our board member was approached by somebody who, let's say, has been affiliated with our network some years ago. And he told him, "You keep talking about joy of learning. Isn't this an outdated concept?" So I will now come back to say, no, it is not. Fun is still very much a recommendation of multiple different organizations. And this is how you can do it. So now the presentation is up, and the title of what I'll be talking about is Adult Learning as a Tool. And we actually have mentioned the word tool multiple times here today. So I will try to maybe put it in a little bit of a different context. So how we see adult learning, which I know is also a big part of your work, also looking at the recommendations that we have right in front, that I have right in front of me. But first, I think a few words about EAEA. So we work on adult learning and education, and also lifelong learning. So of course, adult learning for us, it's actually the most important part of the spectrum, because it's the longest one. When you look at the lifelong learning, which is often beautifully summarized from cradle to grave, that way from until the grave is actually pretty long after you reach an adult age. And we concentrate on the non-formal sector, so the learning that is doesn't necessarily bring you a certificate or formal qualifications. It can, but it doesn't have to, and that is still structured. And we are an association. We represent more than 120 members in 42 countries. So that means EU, but also other countries as defined in the Council of Europe. So what we do, we work a lot in projects, I think similar to many of your organizations, as far as I understand. We provide information to our members about the work that they are doing. Our members are mostly adult learning providers, but also associations on the national level. And we also try to connect to other work networks. And now I will come to the more policy-related part. So the second thing that we do is we really try to, I think very much like you did in your work here, to collect different views from different levels at which you are working and to try to digest it into something that can be hopefully understandable and attractive and considered important for policymakers. So we want to raise the visibility of adult learning, also to have a sort of manifesto to explain why adult learning is important, and with that also influence policy. And I will give you some examples later on how we try to do that. So there is the question of the 3:15 or whatever time it is right now. So is adult learning and education a tool, and how do we see that? Because that's something that we hear a lot. So very often we are approached and we are told, oh, adult learning and education, it's so important. It's so important. We need to work with you more. We need educated citizens. So what is it a tool for? Maybe it can just help you fix employability issues. So there are people who, of course, are out of employment or who need to adapt to changing economies. Maybe this is what adult education is for. Maybe it's for supporting demographic changes. So that could be migration into the country that's increasing, or people leaving the country, or having a workforce that is still getting older. How do we approach that? So this is one thing for which adult learning can be a tool. Then I don't think I need to, of course, explain the Sustainable Development Goals and the many interlinked challenges that we are facing, that we are still supposed to solve until 2030, and that's a deadline that's coming closer. And these are really major challenges. So we have zero hunger or reduced inequalities, quality education. Of course, it is the one where we fit best, but we actually do make that case at EAEA. We say you need adult learning to actually fix, if you will, any of these challenges, because these things should be working together. Or maybe it's something that will help us solve the big energy crisis right now that's going on, and climate change, because you need citizens who, of course, should be aware of the consequences of climate change, but also taking decisions when voting, for example, for candidates who support these views. So that's another big topic. Or fighting populist trends. And we had an interesting discussion in our group about networks that can prevent or help prevent radicalization. So maybe this is what we need adult learning for. And it's to help people see when these populist fights happen. Or maybe you might remember what happened just 2 years ago, or the very memorable year of 2020, when we didn't really expect, most of us, I think, to be stuck at home for more than a year, and the different consequences that suffering a pandemic brought. The word resilience, I can tell you, that came up so often everywhere. You might have heard it as well. And to be honest, that could have been the starting point here. This was the moment when we really started hearing about how adult learning is important everywhere, because it can help us deal with all these big things that are happening and to help us make sense out of them. So yeah, we need a quick fix. There are important changes happening. Life is so unpredictable. The world is so difficult. So we need adult learning and education. And of course, that's great. But there are some complications that we see with that as well. So I think the next slide was going to show you some big policy frameworks that exist. So we said, yes, of course, adult learning can support different challenges, and that is actually reflected already. So this is the joy of working in Brussels. You look at these names and you try to make sense out of them. My personal favorite is upskilling pathways, which was and I think the first idea was it was supposed to be called a skills guarantee, but the Council of the European Union, so ministers of your countries, ministers of education said, no, a guarantee is too much. We cannot guarantee skills. Let's call it upskilling pathways. So I'm not going to go into the maze of all of these different frameworks because they're pretty complex for the time slot that I have. But I think just from the names, you can see that to some extent, you can tell that adult learning is present, for example, in the European Pillar of Social Rights, which is a very big framework. And lifelong learning is actually the first pillar that they have. We have key competences for lifelong learning, 8 of them as far as I remember. So again, this is a document that's promoted at different levels. Skills, again, buzzword that you hear everywhere. So what skills for the future? And then in terms of kind of bigger policy frameworks, because they are all puzzles that are at least supposed to fit well together, we have the European Education Area, which was announced in 2020, and it has different elements that, for example, includes the new European Agenda for Adult Learning that was approved in 2021. And for you especially, I think that's one of the more interesting ones because it makes a very strong case for community learning and learning in communities. So in theory, that's something that should already be part of some proposals, calls for funding at some levels. So when we look at what happens next, so here I'm going to say a little bit about how we do our advocacy work, and then I'm going to tell you what we say in our advocacy work, coming back to the points that we made earlier. So you saw this big maze of documents and different names, but what you also need to remember, most of you might know that already, is that the EU doesn't actually have hard competence in the area of education. So we do this work, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be a directive telling members, this is what you have to do, and this is the money that you have to do it, and this is the deadline, and we expect results. That cannot happen. So what usually happens is that the European institutions work more with soft law. So they can make communications, they can make recommendations that often translate into actual calls for funding, but it's not something that is necessarily binding. What they do is something that's you could informally call naming and shaming. So they bring together people who work in the same area, for example, in the area of skills. At the European Commission, there is a working group on adult learning that focuses on skills. And these are representatives of ministries for education or labor, depending on where that fits in a given country, and civil society stakeholders. So EAEA has a seat on that group. And this group comes together every few months to discuss topics of interest. It's always like a 2-year mandate. Right now, another beautiful term, individual learning accounts. And I think there is a big representation from France here, incidentally. I think you might have a similar scheme in your country. So the idea that learners should be able to get a certain amount of funding and then get courses through that funding paid within a certain limit. So this group meets regularly to compare where they are, in this case, with individual learning accounts in their country, to organize peer learning visits and to compare what they're doing, and sometimes to also compare statistics and to say, oh, my country, for example, Poland, is not doing very well in terms of participation in adult learning, and this can be openly said. We also have a seat on the working group on equality and values. At the European Parliament, we work with different MEPs, a few Finnish people here as well, and very big Finnish beginning today from what I've heard. So MEP Sirpa Pietikainen is the chair of the group. I hope I pronounced her name in a way that's understandable. And she's a very big supporter of lifelong learning. And then we also work a lot with the Council of the EU. So you might be familiar with the concept of presidencies of the EU. Right now it's the Spanish presidency, which means that we are trying to find out what communications they are putting forward, what their plans are. Just before, I mentioned the European Agenda for Adult Learning. So that was approved during the presidency of Slovenia in 2021. And Slovenia has a very, very strong adult learning system, also with a very active civil society and very well connected to the level of the ministry. So as far as I know, they had a very big say in what goes on into the document, and at some point also contacted us. So very often we say, yes, we do a lot of advocacy work in Brussels because we meet with MEPs in the European Parliament. We meet with representatives of the European Commission, but actually it's the work of our members, ideally, that should happen in parallel, because they are the ones doing advocacy towards their ministries, who might come back a few months later and say, well, actually, a skills guarantee doesn't sound too bad, instead of course, having upskilling pathways, which is a bit less of a commitment. So a few words now, I think, about why we don't want to see adult learning and education only as a tool, and what we actually say when we talk to representatives of the EU in different meetings. So yes, of course, all of the challenges that we mentioned, adult learning has to play a big role to help us solve them. But in the very instrumental view of adult learning, it starts often with a very individual perspective and what the outcome should be, and how many jobs were accessed after a certain amount of time. And it's really also often, and especially we see that now with the big discussion about the learning accounts, it leads to adult learning becoming very privatized and really a market where smaller community centers cannot compete, because if you have a very big company that provides the same services according at least to the schemes that are run, that's very difficult to sometimes put together. So we don't want to see that discourse that's only on self-optimization and very focused on that, but instead we would really like to have a more transformative or emancipating view of adult learning, and to also see that yes, we can solve these challenges, but we need to solve them together, and you need to really be a community to do that and to value communities. It needs to be focused on action, but also on the wider benefits of adult learning. Usually in this presentation, I start with why learning is important. I figured that would not be necessary in this room, because of course the benefits of learning go much, much wider than only, for example, fixing unemployment. And what we also want to see is really learning that takes different levels of society into account, including learners themselves. And there are multiple now inspiring initiatives where learner voices are taken into account. Learners take decisions about the places where they learn, and that's something that we would like to see much more often. And I think most of that I have already mentioned. I will just maybe name drop one very important adult educator whom you might know already. That's of course Paulo Freire and his concept of education for critical consciousness. So that's really what we would like to see, an adult learning that's understood in a more holistic way. So not just a list of problems that we need to fix in 5 minutes, but a commitment that for it to happen, you need trust, as you discussed earlier today. You need really very wide and strong networks working together, and an investment that doesn't end in 5 years, but something that actually becomes a system that works and that pays off actually sometimes generations later. And in some countries you can already see that. And with that I will close. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandra, for this detailed and committed intervention.
We have a special announcement as well. I hear that the board of EFS recently agreed to apply for membership of this lovely and wonderful organization based in Brussels. So I hope, fingers crossed, the link between Patricia, say hello Patricia, our president, we will soon come to Brussels as members, and we will see each other again. Thank you very much.
And that is, I talked about the policy recommendations earlier. I just want to say something more about this white paper. The policy recommendations is only a part of the white paper. And also the policy recommendations is more outlined in this white paper. And this one, except for the policy recommendations, you can also it is the paper on the role, the impact our challenges and also the recommendations of neighborhood centers. And I would say this is good for recognition of our movement, but it's also good for people who are working in our movement to see what really is the point of what we are doing when we are baking cakes together with seniors or playing football with kids or whatever we are doing. Why are we doing it and what kind of impact can it have on people's life? So I think it could be very useful in many ways.
Okay, now with my colleague from the board of directors, we want to share with you what we worked during 2 days since Tuesday and Wednesday. First of all, I want to present SOPHIE from Morocco. She helped the vice president. Where is the vice president? Mohamed, come on, please. He is vice president of, Anna, she's secretary, a great woman. She works a lot with us. Staffan is vice president. Stefan from the board. Giovanna, the woman vice president too. And Sophie. Okay. I hope everybody that you have a little more energy. Yeah? Really? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Tuesday and Wednesday, we had one seminar in seminar strategic, one kickoff who permit at the current and youth members to be in phase with the mission and strategic plan of EFS in line with values of IFS. But also and mainly for better identify the needed and resources of our Euromed network. We also start to work on the issues and challenges Euro-Mediterranean. The participants on the seminar are in the room and come from Ireland. Ireland? Where is it from Ireland? Charlie? Yeah. Okay. Romania, Sweden. You have some people from Sweden. Finland, Estonia, Ukraine, Denmark, Italy, Morocco, France, Greece, Hungary, Netherlands, Germany, France. We want just to give you an overview of our works. Staffan, if you can explain a little bit. No, before. The link is yours.
So, I'm also talking not only out of EFS, but also out of IFS. It is so, probably you already know that the IFS is a rather big organization. We have members in all continents, and that is in 31 countries. We have around 11,000 local organizations that are connected to us. And we also have regional nodes like Southeast Asia Pacific. We have IFS Africa, IFS America. And so far we have had an IFS Euro that now are transforming into EFS, like an legal entity. And from the IFS side, we are welcoming this very much because that we are definitely sure that this will strengthen the whole IFS and the global network in a very good way. We have also created an agreement between IFS and EFS. And one of the basic things is, of course, that we share the same values and we want to work in the same way. And that we also work jointly with projects and and sharing of best practice and so on. But also that to be in EFS, you also need to be in IFS. So it is, if you want to be in a European organization like EFS, then also you get the whole world. It's a package deal, so to say. So that is really wonderful. And if you are a member of IFS, then if you are in European or Mediterranean organization, then you also have the possibility to engage in EFS. So this is very, very positive. Thank you. So this is very positive. Thank you. So,
okay. So, as you know, EFS was created during, EFS was created during fostering social justice, during this project. And, but after several years of reflection, as Staffan said, we knew that if we create one European NGO, we can have some funds from UN, HALONEN Foundation, post-ranging, or Euromed cooperation between the members in this region. Our work, can you change this? Wait. Our work will be always for more democracy and social justice, of course. We want to develop one Euro-Mediterranean movement and to promote the work of our members to the local European and Mediterranean political institutions. Also to influence policymakers. To build, in one word, to build concrete common actions and advocacy will be our challenges. Currently, we have 17 organizations and 28 members. And now, coming up result from seminar.
So until we will present you the results, we will show you that we worked really hard in the last 2 days to build something and to do something. So here you can see a few pictures from our last 2 days. Yeah. And now I will give to my colleague.
Okay, we try to share the microphone, and how is the way to go ahead? The first, this one? Okay. No. Okay. Okay. So, the first goals that we have built together is build new strategy to achieve the main common goal of IFS mission. The second, disseminate knowledge and expertise within the IFS network. The third, co-design projects together. The fourth, establishing stronger connection at the political level and forging ties with the other international networks advocating for social justice on the European Mediterranean scale. And the last one, expand our network within the Euro-Mediterranean region.
So those are the summary of the goals which we discussed Tuesday actually, but of course after this we will go deeply and to figure out like the exactly goals. But to achieve our goals, we ask our members 2 questions. First of it was what they can bring in the relationship in our network to improve it and to develop. And also here you will see only the main ideas. Of course, webinars, working groups to get know more about EFS members. After that, to take initiative with people which we do not know. Be active in the project, activists, new and existing ones. And approaching people from same area of work, understanding the visions of and the goals of the people. After we understood what they can bring, we ask them what EFS can bring and to give them. And some results: act as a movement NGO in social justice, exchange project collaboration, an interactive map to design on the website, like to have the possibility to know your members or your area mapping, to create some group chattings for thematics, for specifics, what we need. And exchange projects for members, professional volunteers, one exactly like it was IFSJ, the example. And about common resources and skills, because each of us, we can bring something, but it's about what we can bring. And after that, to figure out what are the common things and what are the differences, to see where we can have the main points and the differences to learn from each other. So some of them you can see also is experience within African and Arabic Maghreb vision, interest for advocacy and policies means, network build bottom-up representative democracy in governance.
Someone, for example, community social and citizenship engagement, someone else conflict resolution based practice, and for example, someone else good methods for strengths vulnerable group like LGBTQ+, and community enterprise, community control, decision making, lobby, national and local, quality of impact plans, and energetic and enthusiastic staff working with the youth in informal learning through doing it yourself. So we have a lot of skills and a lot of resources in order to work together for next year. And so that's it for my side.
Yes, and now I will give the floor to Safa, who will present the workshop which happened yesterday about the Euro-Mediterranean Partnership.
So, as we all know, the EFS represents an international community of associations from Euro-Mediterranean region, and this requires us to know more about the area we belong to. The Euro-Mediterranean Partnership, or as it knows, Barcelona process, was established in 1995 as a significant initiative by the European Union. It aimed to create a comprehensive framework for the entire Mediterranean basin. Initially, the partnership involved 15 European countries, states, and 12 Mediterranean countries, but now it's 43 countries in the present. And in this context, a workshop was held yesterday focusing on the following axes. So the axe one, so the first ask we were discussed in the workshop was the uniqueness. It's after, I think. Okay, I will continue. The first ask represents the uniqueness of the Euro-Mediterranean region as a melting pot of cultures influenced by centuries of shared history. The sea has been a unifying force, cultural exchange, and shaping similar social structures. The region shared collective heritage from various civilizations, contributing to a sense of shared identity among its inhabitants. So that was about the first axe. The second axe was about the challenges and dynamics in the Euro-Mediterranean region, which are deeply multifaceted, reflecting a complex interplay of historical legacies, contemporary socio-political dynamic, and geographical realities. At the heart of these challenges, we have a lot of issues that include socio-economic disparities, geopolitical tensions, democracy, cultural differences, and environmental concerns. Participants highlighted migration and refugee crisis as present challenges rooted in historical conflicts, colonial legacies, and socio-political upheavals. The Act 3, it was about the role of civil society organization in solving Euro-Mediterranean problems. And we agreed that civil society organizations play an essential role in addressing Euro-Mediterranean challenges. It acts as influential advocates, amplifying the diverse voices to push for policy reforms and awareness regarding issues such as migration, economic disparities, stability, and security. The fourth axe and the last axe is the challenges and stakes facing EFS. So the participants highlighted internal challenges faced by EFS, including issues with access fines and the importance of linking dialogues with effective communication. And according to the participants, active contribution from EFS could involve a strategic focus on providing training to EFS participants, promoting critical thinking approaches, and establishing a strong dialogue platform. Moreover, participants suggest that EFS should focus on community-led initiatives, collaborate with researchers and universities, and advocate for sustainability of local economies and enhance democratic practices. And for this reason, they made recommendations that could outline the path of EFS work in the future and that focus on clear communication strategy, knowledge exchange platforms, empower through dialogue, strategic goal settings and finding, visibility and impact, understanding Euro-Mediterranean issues. Yeah, I don't have time to go through all the details, but that's it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Now it's time for you to talk to us. We have two questions for you. The first is, you see it. What issue do you think is the main challenge in the Euro-Mediterranean region today?
I think there are multiple issues. But I think probably the challenge for us as civic actors is cohesion in terms of our understanding and cohesion in terms of our response to the issues. So the traditional issues that are long established, which is poverty and inequality, and still remain, and they are obviously still dominant issues. Climate is a key one. Migration associated with climate is a key one. War is a key one. The lack of democracy is a key one. But for civic actors, it's our relationship with those main issues and the coherence of our understanding around the response that's needed to address those issues.
Okay, thank you.
So I think someone already mentioned it. The Mediterranean is a beautiful sea. I am sure that some of you maybe even enjoyed some beaches, but still there are a lot of people dying in that sea. So I think this is really the biggest challenge we have. What many people are experiencing there, or even if they survive, what they experience in Europe, and the coherence of the European policy. And also there is another war actually right now insisting on the same sea between Israel and what we know that is passing in Gaza.
As we have discussed already yesterday, Mediterranean is the meeting point of different cultures that produces conflicts very often in several domains. It's not only the language, it's also the two cultures deriving from Eastern and West. So it's a melting point of different, let's say, references of cultures, and maybe interests. And that's why we need to make people understand that there are things that unify them, not to making them being in different conflict situation. And as well, it's migration. It's very important to mention that it's coming either because of the war and either because of the climate change. So climate, migration, difference of cultures, religious-derived situations makes things very, very critical at the moment in the Euromed basin and area.
I don't know what the second question is, so I hope I'm not being ahead of myself. But I'm trying to think of Euromed issues that might be relevant, in particular to EFS, or where EFS members can do something. And when we were having these discussions today, one of the things that became clear to me, and that I guess in the back of my head I already knew but was maybe not as conscious of, was that climate change is hitting this area particularly hard compared to maybe other parts of Europe, for example. And to me this sounds like an issue that EFS members can take action on. It can be sort of a community-led response to energy transition or climate adaptation. So I think in terms of Euromed issues that we could sort of fit within our circle of influence, if you will, that might be a really big one.
You see the question. We need to thank you for this point of view. We need them to know here to grow up our comprehension to for all these questions. So the second question is, how can we, as an European NGO, address that issue from your point of view? We have such ideas, but yeah.
Thank you.
I guess maybe to elaborate on that early issue around climate change and energy transition, I think one of the things that we can do is exchange as countries amongst each other what a community-led energy transition might look like. So I think in terms of knowledge exchange and how you do that and how you could maybe be enterprising or how you can do organizing around it. But similarly, this is one of those issues where a lot of European funding, I mean the Green New Deal, or there's a lot of European funding going to climate adaptation and energy transition. So I think for us as an NGO, it would be interesting to see if we can maybe adjust some of that funding or some of that policy in little ways. That means that money goes straight into the communities rather than maybe get stuck at sort of a national or regional level.
In terms of climate action, is giving civic organisations ownership of energy solutions, like they do in Scotland, like they do in Bristol, which has the largest single wind farm in Europe, which is owned by the community, and the profits collectively are returned to that community. So from an influencing policy and programme response, it's making sure that EFG are lobbying the EU to ensure that opportunities are being made available to civic organisations to be real actors, cooperative, corporate actors in that energy space.
Okay. May I? So, thank you. And of course, it's a learning process anyway. We have to learn more from each other, being in the same area, but also we have to learn how to combat the fake news. That it means to fight against stereotypes that are always together with any information that we receive about the general situation or specific situation in each of the countries. So becoming more critical in the information that we receive and we elaborate afterwards, and as community centers to support connection between people, practices and cultures.
I just thought that perhaps we could also look if there are possibilities for collaborations with business and industry, because when we come to green transition, so there's also a lot of companies who make the same thing so that we don't forget about or don't talk only like NGOs and political decision makers, but also think about business and industry if we find something exciting there.
All I was going to add was just to add on to that, how it can convene others in the space, so, such as business, but also what about social movements and other people already actors in this space?
Hi, I just wanted to say, you know, as a relative outsider to your 3-year project is, firstly, I think it's very brave that you are kind of going to the heart of it in your region, so in your part of the globe, to pick the Euromed region. Maybe it's a phrase or a concept that you're familiar with, but it's new to me. And underneath it, probably as you were discussing it in your couple of days, away day, was, you know, all the historical patterns and inequalities that fed into it. But instead of papering over the cracks, you're choosing to go towards it with a intention of collaboration and to increase equality and improve cohesion. So I think that's, you should applaud yourself for saying this is courageous, this is brave. And secondly is in terms of how, is maybe there needs to be some principles to expand the process of figuring out the how. Because, you know, you have possibly, you know, 400 years of background and 100 years of community organizing. And so if some principles were about that reinvestment process that we were talking about earlier, where, you know, community ownership is a principle, so that the actors that you get from business, from social enterprise, they recognize when they engage with you, you're going to have you're going to expect an equitable partnership environment in which you engage with them, because you have the people on your side. So to go into this knowing your power.
So thank you. I think everybody is a little bit tired.
Yes.
No, we just want to give you one overview of our works. It's our first strategic seminar and some information for the communication, if you want.
So, yeah, if you would have more questions about us, or do you have now to put us some questions about EFS or anything? You will find also a small flyer at the table who wants to find some information about us. Also soon we will have a page on the IFS network webpage. So we will use the same website, but we will have our own page. We will have we have also already a Facebook page since today, so you can find us. Yeah. And of course on Instagram and LinkedIn, Twitter. Will come soon. So, and don't hesitate in any moment. Do you have questions or suggestions? We are open and we are waiting. Thank you. So, questions? No. Okay.
Thank you so much, and thank you, my colleague, for finishing our session. We want to share with you small movies. As you know, unfortunately, we are in September in Morocco. They are the disaster, and the Organisation Alternative made a lot of action in this in different part of this sinister, and we want to share with you what they made.
So that was a video of the Solidarity Caravan that our organization, the Alternative Organization for Childhood and Youth, made in the House region after the earthquake, and it aims basically to provide the psychological support, especially for children. The caravan was under the name of Smile of Hope, and we are in the organization like planning for other projects to keep up our work in the region, since we still have a lot of victims there and they need help from all the participants from Morocco and even like people abroad Morocco. Thank you.
Thank you. The last word today will go to PENTTI, but before that, we have one last speaker. She is announced on the program, so you probably know who she is, but she is the local member for the European Parliament, Fabienne Keller, and we are, very lucky to have her hosting us tomorrow. She couldn't be here today because she's still in Brussels. She's traveling back tonight, but she has sent all of us a message. Some of you will be glad it's in French, but it is subtitled in English. So enjoy our last speaker of the day before PENTTI.
Bonjour à tous. Je suis très heureuse de vous saluer à l'occasion de la clôture de vos travaux et avant de vous retrouver demain au Parlement européen de Strasbourg. Tout d'abord, je voudrais saluer la Fédération des centres sociaux, les présidents, TARIK TOUAHRIA et PENTTI LEMMETYINEN, ainsi que la coordinatrice de projet, SOPHIE MICHELENA. Merci d'avoir choisi Strasbourg pour tenir cette grande conférence, une conférence finale autour du projet Fostering Social Justice. J'aurai le plaisir de vous accueillir demain au Parlement européen, qui est au fond la maison de la démocratie européenne, et je crois que cela fait vraiment écho à l'esprit de votre projet et à la teneur de vos échanges depuis ce matin. En effet, nous accordons ici au Parlement une très grande importance à la justice sociale dans l'ensemble de nos travaux. Votre projet est un exemple, puisqu'il bénéficie d'ailleurs d'un financement dans le cadre du budget européen et plus particulièrement de son programme Erasmus. Nous avons d'ailleurs augmenté, je me suis pas mal battue avec les collègues de mon groupe pour obtenir un peu plus de moyens pour Erasmus pour l'année prochaine, le budget général. En juin de l'année dernière, nous avons organisé au Parlement européen, avec le Conseil national des villes, dont je suis coprésidente, les rencontres européennes de la démocratie participative. C'est une démarche à laquelle vous avez participé, c'est ainsi que je vous ai connu et je suis heureuse aujourd'hui qu'à votre tour, vous ayez pu rejoindre Strasbourg et bénéficier de l'esprit du Parlement européen. Je voudrais saluer à nouveau la dimension très européenne de votre projet, qui a impliqué 12 partenaires de 11 pays de l'Union européenne pour échanger, réfléchir et encourager les pratiques et les politiques en matière d'engagement et d'éducation. Et je voudrais ici avoir une pensée particulière pour Martine Patier, avec laquelle on a monté ce projet de votre présence ici à Strasbourg. Je sais que vous me remettrez demain un livre blanc qui contient l'ensemble des propositions politiques que vous portez. J'aurai plaisir non seulement à en prendre connaissance, mais aussi à le partager avec mes collègues du Parlement européen. Bravo à vous et merci d'avoir pris le temps de vous plonger au cœur du Parlement européen, cette tour de Babel européenne que j'ai eu grand plaisir à partager avec vous.
Merci Fabienne.
Dear people, because we are a global movement, many crises, wars and nature disaster come close to us. They are no longer news in the media, but things that our partners and friends have to experience. Today we have heard what our colleagues told about their work and life in Ukraine, and we saw a video from Morocco after the earthquake. We support our friends in their time of need, but we also want to raise our voice and tell the world what we think and what our values are. That's why we publish statements and declarations. They all are published on our websites, so you find the link on the program, so you can find the link and check what they are. But one of the latest was published a few weeks ago. It is about the war in the Middle East. We condemn the terrorist attacks on Israel by Hamas and are shocked by the suffering of civilians. We also condemn the Israeli state response in the Gaza Strip. Killing of thousands of innocent civilians will prevent any positive developments in the region for the long time to come. The perpetrators of war crimes must be brought to international justice. The international community must intervene peacefully in a region where there is no room for negotiation between the parties. Without it, only weapons will talk and mutual hatred will grow. Peace does not have to be built between friends. Peace is built between enemies. We understand that only a just peace is a lasting peace, also between Israelis and Palestinians. As a global movement, we are shocked by the rise of anti-Semitism in the world. It is not right that the actions and decisions of the State of Israel should be blamed on all Jewish communities of the world. I want to remind us that IFS and EFS are UN organizations. Established after the Second World War, the aim of the Commonwealth was to ensure that there would never be another war. We are concerned that today the authority of the UN is being questioned, and that in part its own structures are preventing effective action to resolve conflicts. If the UN had not been established in 1945, it would probably be impossible to establish today. Through its own activities, IFS and EFS seek to support, strengthen and reform the work of the UN. It's good to know that we have got 2 times Nobel Peace Prize. Once 1931 when Jane Addams got the Nobel Peace Prize, and another time 1948 with Quakers, because at that time after the Second World War, IFS and Quakers together organized voluntary work camps in Europe when they helped people to rebuild their homes and cities when they were starting the new life after the war. So, our history is a history of peacemakers. It challenges and encourages us as we think about what we are doing today and what we will do in the future. IFS is a movement of dialogue and solidarity and peace. So, thanks for the powerful day today, and let's have a nice evening. Okay, thank you so much.